Lauren Kennedy, thank you so much for joining me on my YouTube channel today.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. I'm so excited. I wanted to introduce you as the founder of the Stranded Shop and LSK Foundation.
Yes.
So I want to start out today talking about the Stranded Shop and yes, and I want to ask you, what inspired you to originally start it, but even beyond that, what inspired you to get started on just living a clean lifestyle?
I lived with my best friend in Dallas, and she was a nurse at night, and we were both blonde at the time and using baby powder as dry shampoo.
Oh my gosh, okay.
So it was like white powder on our hair, so it like worked for her hair.
Extra blonde.
Yes.
Yeah.
And all of her brunette friends were like, we so wish we had an option like that for our hair that was good. Yeah. So she came back and she was like, I feel like we should just try to create something and like we can test it out on my sister. Researched ingredients that were good for your hair and your scalp and all those things. And then we were like, okay, we just like made a really good product in our apartment and then tested it on my sister and we're like, this is great. But we were like, how do we become a business? How do we market? How do we brand? And little by little, we would just get little like almost hints of how to do that through people. And it was just so fun because it was like truly grassroots.
Love that. And how long ago was that?
So that was like 8 years ago, which is so crazy. And so what it is a powdered dry shampoo, but all with clean ingredients. And
amazing.
Yeah.
And was that a crucial key to deciding you wanted to make it? You were like, it has to be a clean product, or did it just happen to be like, oh, let's make something that's not like totally toxic for you?
Yeah, and it's so interesting because so I grew up in a really healthy home. Like my parents are really active and like always ate really clean, which I realize is so rare.
Yes.
Now that I learn more about just like how people grew up, and I mean, I would have my like zebra cakes every now and then. Like,
absolutely, as you should. Like the occasional Twinkie. I don't know.
Let's go. So I was like, okay. When I was in college, I actually like did a little experiment of my own because I was always so bloated in high school and then in college, and I was like, why am I so bloated? And I feel like then like gut health wasn't really talked about at all.
Totally.
And so I'm like, I'm gonna figure this out because I'm just so uncomfortable. Like it just like hurt. I saw like change physically and like just feeling good by eating these like clean foods and all of that. And then so my accident happened, and then my neurosurgeon actually told me like you won't have normal energy back for about 5 years.
Wow.
And so I think I just really started learning like, okay, everything I use in my life is impacting my energy. So I think it was like probably emotional, like moving from a city with all my people and like so comfy in, and then to LA, which can feel crazy and like lonely. And even coming into Jason's life, and he has so many great friends, it still like felt that way. I had literally like zero energy.
Wow.
And so I went to a naturopath, and I was like producing no energy at all, like zero. I was just living off of adrenaline.
Oh my gosh.
That too launched me into being like, okay, let me look at my whole life and really like shift this around. And
absolutely.
For instance, like you could go through your whole house with products and be like, oh crap, my mattresses, bedding, towels, cleaning products, everything is not clean, I need to change it. And it's like, that's not realistic. Like that's so expensive.
Right.
Like, let's just start with like hand soap, you know?
So true.
Yeah.
What was the reasoning for making everything sustainable, or, the packaging, like everything is ethically, to an extent, ethically sourced and created? Like, why was that so important to you?
I feel like just learning more about like how certain things impact our environment and how our environment's changing, and like what can we do. I feel like what we do, even though it may feel small, is like big if we all do something small.
Absolutely.
You know?
I love that. Yeah.
So that's what we were thinking behind it. And some things that we tried to make sustainable or get sustainable actually wasn't even available at this point.
Wow.
So we're just like growing as that availability grows. So it's just our top goal.
I want to also talk about your foundation. Okay, I wanted to know, first of all, how you guys all came together, and how did you come up with the vision and the the passion behind the LSK Foundation.
Yeah, okay. So in 2011, a brief description. So I was hit by a plane propeller, lost my left hand, left eye, traumatic brain injury, and then a lot of other injuries that I found out about like later, like actually this last year, which was really random. I know, I got my medical papers for like someone I was working with bodywork wise, and I was reading it like it was someone else's story, and I was like, wait, what? What?
Oh my gosh, that's wild.
I know. It was kind of crazy, but like kind of cool and like humbling to read years later. Like, thank you so much, God, for like protecting me. Yeah.
That's got chills. Ooh,
Yes.
that's wild, yeah.
It was so crazy. So, shortly after, I remember my dad was like, what do you need from me today? And I was like, I just want to meet Bethany Hamilton. I don't know if you know who that is.
Yes, of course.
Okay.
Yeah.
So she, for anyone that doesn't know, lost her arm in a shark accident or a shark attack a few years before me, and she was like the only girl I knew of with one arm that was like around my age. So I shortly after that connected with her, and she has a really amazing foundation that reaches out to people that lose limbs, and we became just fast friends. Like, I remember we met in New York, we were there for the same time, and just like really hit it off quickly, and we were like, we should start a retreat weekend for girls specifically that have lost a limb.
Cool.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Did you guys do it?
Yeah.
Amazing.
It's like almost our 10th year.
Oh my gosh, so it's every year you do it.
Yes.
So cool.
Yeah, it's like the best. And after that, I remember getting there, and I was like, why doesn't anyone have a prosthetic arm? Like, it's so great, but like, do these girls want an arm, or like, am I just the rare one here because I was the only one with a prosthesis?
You were the only one.
Yeah.
Wow.
I know. So that like really stood out to me, and even some of the girls were like, where is Lauren? And I was like, I'm right here. And they were like, oh, we were looking for your arm and we couldn't see it. I was like, wait, what? And I was like, it's like, they make your arm like very realistic looking, like where I went.
Oh yeah, I mean, I would never be able to tell if I didn't know.
Yeah. And so I started just like getting to know the girls and asking them, and every one of their answers was, I so wish I could get one, just insurance doesn't cover it. And my story was really different, and insurance covered my arms. Like, I got like 4 arms.
Wow. That's amazing.
I know, and never knew. I didn't know anyone at that point, so I didn't know anyone's stories, and like Bethany doesn't have an arm and like a prosthesis, and so I was like, oh my gosh. And
so you just didn't know otherwise, like to you having a prosthetic arm was normal, and it was a part of your journey, and you're now meeting people that just didn't even have access to it.
And
my
like
gosh.
Imagining that fight, especially when you go through a loss of like a limb, and then having to fight with insurance to get something that like really helps you function and just emotionally helps you feel whole. And even though it's like a physical object, it really, like, you can go to the grocery store and not get stared at, which staring isn't necessarily bad because it's like curiosity and something different, which is like beautiful in its own way. But sometimes you just want to like go somewhere and not have no attention, you know?
Totally, and not have to carry that. Like, that's a beautiful perspective that you have, and I hope like people hear that and can embrace that with whatever they're going through. But at the same time, like, that's a heavy weight to hold as a person who has to be like, that's not, like, being stared at isn't a bad thing. Like, that's a beautiful perspective on it, because it can be, it can be alienating and scary. So I'm sure, you want to go to the store and not have to be the person to remain positive or optimistic that day sometimes.
Totally. You're like, I just want to feel
totally normal.
So I was like, man, I know the impact that had on me, and I was like, something needs to happen here, and I don't know what I can do. But my friend Ashley, who actually lost her foot in a car accident, and she lived in Dallas also, was around my age. And none of her friends knew for a while. Like, only the friends that were with her in this car accident.
No way.
Yeah. And I was like, this is so wild. And then my friend Lisa, who she's like my parents' age, and she lost her foot when she was like 16, or sorry, her leg. in a motorcycle accident, and like none of her friends knew. She just wasn't open about it.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, which is so crazy. And now it's just so different for them. Now it's just like something they really have accepted and now like talk about and share just with their friend or like community. You know?
So it's like they've embraced it, and it's like, yeah, they're happy to talk about it, share about it.
Yeah, which I think has come from like meeting other women that have gone through something similar. Because I was the same. I feel like this is a crazy story, but we were in Idaho for the summer, and I sent both my arms in to get kind of like fixed a little and like cleaned up when I was in Dallas, because I was like, I'm just with my family, I don't care. I like have to wear my arm. But I used to like go everywhere just with a prosthetic arm on.
Wow.
And so and just would feel like so insecure without it on. And for some reason it got like held up in the mail. Like it was at this FedEx like place, like landing
like a facility
spot.
It's just stuck there.
Yes, and they wouldn't like let it go. It was so weird. So yeah, so my the place that like does my arm, they kept calling, and like it wouldn't like happen, and usually it takes like 1 day for it to get there. It's so fast and whatever. So the trip to Dallas was done. I go back to Idaho, and I was like, it's summertime and like I'm wearing swimsuits and tank tops. And I was like, I can either sit in my house and just like not go out, or I can just like embrace who I am now and like just be. And so I did that, and it was truly what like set me free.
Oh my gosh. Amazing.
Yeah, but it took like years to get that way. So I was like, yeah, it was like the coolest experience kind of that happened, even though I didn't feel that way in the moment.
I feel like life has a way of showing you those things in the most humbling way, when you think like, I can't do this without that, or I don't have the strength to get through this one thing. And it's like whenever you carry that mentality or that thing that's holding you back, God or life or whatever it is, I feel like always finds a way to show you that you can, or that you're strong enough. And it's like never the way that you want it to happen. You're like, wait, I couldn't have just like found that strength internally, but yeah, there's always like something that arises or challenges you, and it's like, that sounds like that was that experience for you.
Oh my gosh. And just being around like, okay, you know when you like don't know someone's name and then it's been way too long to even ask them? Okay. It's like that with like truly all my friends from Los Angeles. So I was like, it's just been so long that they've never seen my arm. Like they just haven't.
Wow.
Yeah. And so I was like, oh my gosh, why did that like feel scarier than like people I didn't know, or like someone that had just seen me for the first time? But it's all like in my own mind, and like just seeing everyone's response is so different than how you imagine it. And like I've really taken that into other situations now, because I'm like, so much of the time it's just like in our own minds, and people are not going to respond how you think.
No.
You know?
Yeah, and I think so much of it is like the anxiety, and that's always worse than reality.
For sure.
You know?
Yes, but like Lisa and Ashley, who they lost their legs, but they were at this like first retreat.
Oh, cool.
So I met with them, and I was like, they each came to me separately with the same burden for like these girls that couldn't get an arm, and then like it grew into girls that were missing legs and all this stuff like over the years. And so we got together and we're like, what can we do to like help provide for these girls and women? And what really like catapulted it, I feel, was my friend Amy. She lost all 4 of her limbs and had 2 little babies.
Oh my gosh.
It's the craziest.
Wow.
Yeah. So insurance would only offer her like hooks for her hands. And she was like, I literally
with 2 babies?
Can't. Yeah.
No way.
Yeah. She's like, I need this to function, and like they're not like budging, and she's like fighting so hard with insurance after she's lost 4 of her limbs. And I was like, this is so crazy. And anyways, it was like this big moment where I was like, something needs to change. Like, this is so sad. And yeah, so the 3 of us got together, and then we were sponsored by the Tim Tebow Foundation, who like literally brought it to life. And
amazing.
Yeah. So it's been so sweet.
And so you basically do you provide the prostheses for women whose insurance won't cover it?
Yes. So,
Wow.
And then so normally insurance will cover like the underneath part. It's kind of like the structural part.
Okay.
But the most expensive part is the skin on it.
Gotcha.
Which makes it last for so long, like years.
Okay.
And so that's what's like kind of a necessity because it just will like last forever. I feel like ones off the shelves, like prosthetic arms and legs, will just like get a hole in them so quickly. Will like
Because you use them every day.
Yeah.
Just like you would your leg or your arm.
Totally.
Wow. Well, thank you so much.
Thanks for coming.
Yeah, thank you for
so
inviting me
great.
into your beautiful home.
Oh my gosh,
And
it's
letting
been
me
so
get to
great.
know you.